like honeybee and the flower. Here honeybee will get the nectar from the flowers, and while it comes and sits on the flower, the pollen grains may stick to the legs or legs of this insect, this honeybee, and whenever it goes and sits on another flower or on another area, so there is possibility of pollination. So through this way it is beneficial for both, and there is no harm to anyone. We have to discuss much about biotic community. In a biotic community refers to group of population of different species, right? Group of populations. So that refers to biotic community. And here we are saying that group of populations of different species we are saying. So when different species are there, like, can we expect some sort of interactions between them, right? So we can expect some sort of interactions between different species. Within the same species there would be interactions. Those interactions within the same species, they are known as intraspecific interactions. We have biotic interactions. Okay, if interactions are existing between single species, that refers to intraspecific interactions, intraspecific within the species. And if there is interactions between different species, so then we can say that as interspecific interactions. Interspecific interactions. Now we have to discuss much about these biotic interactions, right? Biotic interactions. Basic definition of environment also includes the same, in the sense like relationship between organisms among themselves and with environment. So here we have to study much about such interactions or such relationship. Okay, so basically if we see in ecology or in an ecosystem or in a biotic community, like the interactions can be useful interactions, or beneficial interactions, or harmful interactions, or neutral interaction. That means an interaction may be useful to both of the organisms, or it may benefit both the organisms, or it may be harmful to both the organisms. Or is there any possibility that, like for example, like plus, let us indicate plus as benefit and minus as harm, and simply let's say star, this as neutral. Okay, so an interaction can be beneficial to both the species, an interaction can be harmful to both the species, an interaction can be neither beneficial nor harmful to any of these species. So is there any possibility of that? For example, like we are discussing now, we have one kind of interaction, like our kind of relation is a kind of win-win situation, benefit to both, in the sense you will get something and I will get something, isn't it? So that is beneficial to both. Okay, and sometimes like it can be harmful to both also, or sometimes it can be harmful to one as well as beneficial to other. So let's try to see what are such kind of interactions, and they are very, very important for us to understand. Okay, here in simple manner to classify these interactions, we can say them as two kinds. One is simply positive interactions and negative interactions. Interactions can be, biotic interactions can be positive as well as negative. Positive means where an organism will benefit, okay, and at least one organism benefits. Okay, so where if an organism is getting harm, then we can say them as negative interactions. Okay, so in simple manner to say, in ecology we have some interactions like we have mutualism. Mutualism. So in mutualism, what will happen means both the organisms will get benefit. The name itself, it's talking about mutual. So here both the organisms will get benefit. Okay, let's look with examples also, but simple basic and terms I am introducing. Then like there can be other relation or other interaction, that is commensalism. The word co means inhabiting co. Like, have you heard of that co-ed? Yes, co-ed, where both girls and boys schools would be there. Likewise, commensal. Commensal means both will live at one place, but one will be benefited and other will not be neither benefited nor harmed. Neither benefit to other organism nor harm to other organism, right? So simply one will be benefited. So that is one thing. Okay. Then in negative interactions, we can have some interactions like predation. Think of tiger and deer. What will happen in between them? One would be predator and other would be prey. So tiger would be the predator and deer would be the prey. So here what will happen? One organism will be benefited and other organism would be harmed, right? Benefit for one and harm to other. So tiger would be benefited, it gets its food. Deer would be harmed, it will lose its life. So predation is one kind of negative interaction, right? So other one would be competition. In competition, what will happen? Individuals of same level will compete for same resource. It can be food, it can be mate, or it can be for shelter. So they may fight. For example, two tigers are fighting for one deer. During this process, one will lose its life and one will gain, and one will remain living and it will get its food. So in competition, there is possibility of harm, right? So that's why we are saying it as negative interactions, right? So that is one thing. Then other kind of interaction is parasitism. Okay, parasites. Have you heard of parasites? So parasites are nothing but those organisms which will depend on others for their food and nourishment. They are nothing but, that is nothing but parasitism. Parasites and parasitism, right? So here what we'll have? We will have one host and we will have one parasite. So parasite will live inside the host. So here parasite will get the nourishment, and sometimes the host would be harmed, and sometimes host will not be harmed. Okay, so most probably host would be harmed. That means it will have some sort of interactionality. Parasite will get its benefit. So these are basic types of interactions. So let's try to see them. Let's try to see them. Just see. If you see mutualism, take an example of simply pollinator and plants. Like pollinators can be birds, pollinators can be animals, pollinators can be honeybees or insects. So if you take a plant and flowers, where they will have flowers, and plants and animals, they may act as pollinators. They may spread the pollen grains from one place to other place. So here, if you take the basic example of, look at here, like honeybee and the flower. Here, honeybee will get the nectar from the flowers, and while it comes and sits on the flower, the pollen grains may stick to the legs or legs of this insect, this honeybee, and whenever it goes and sits on another flower or on another area, so there is possibility of pollination. So through this way, it is beneficial for both, and there is no harm to anyone. So both are getting benefited. So that is one thing. So here relation is positive. So one example is honeybees and plants, or simply pollinators and plants. Okay. So next example, and such kind of interaction is also known as protocooperation. Protocooperation. Both the sides, from both the sides there is cooperation. One is getting nourishment and other one is getting its, means like one function is being performed, pollination is being performed, right? So then, like, have you heard of this word lichens? Lichens. So try to understand about lichens. This has also been asked in exam. What is lichen? That was also one question. Okay. Lichen in simple sense to say association of fungi and algae. Lichen means fungi and algae will live together. It's a kind of symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic. Sym means associated with both. Both are associated. Symbiotic relationship between fungi and algae. Okay. So we have algae like green patches. Whatever you see green patches, they are nothing but algae. And whatever the white patches you can see here, that refers to fungus. So lichens are nothing but a kind of symbiotic relationship between algae and fungus, right? So here also both will get its benefit. So what will happen here? The fungus which is there here, fungus, where fungus will form generally? In which kind of surfaces? Moist surfaces. On moist surfaces it will be formed. So here what will happen means fungus will provide the necessary moisture and it will give protection, whereas the algae which is there, it will give the food to fungus, nourishment to fungus. So that's how this relationship is also mutual, right? So that is one thing. Then, like, look at this crocodile and bird association. This is also one mutual relationship. Now can you see how happily the bird is sitting in the mouth of crocodile? No, it won't happen, because crocodile also knows that it is getting benefited. It is getting benefited. Usually when crocodile will be there in its habitat, so crocodile, like while having or while just living that, it like in bit for the teeth of crocodile, sometimes leeches will get hanged up. Leeches. And now these birds which are there here, they will feed on the leeches. They will feed on the leeches. And during this process, the birds will get their food, and here the teeth, no need to, for crocodile, no need to brush the teeth. Simply these birds will perform that function. So it will clean the teeth. So in one way, it is getting benefited and it is getting its food also, right? So that's how it is also one mutual interaction, right? So that is with reference to the mutualism, right? So here you can see that both the species are getting benefit from the interaction, right? So the term itself, it's talking about mutualism. Mutual means both the sides, right? So pollinator and plants. Now can you able to recollect the example? Now plants and mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhiza means myco means fungus, roots with fungus, that refers to mycorrhiza. The word rhiza means roots, myco means fungus. So roots, plants with mycorrhizal fungi. So here also, like this is also one kind of mutualistic relationship. Then clownfish and sea anemone. Clownfish and sea anemone. We are talking about sea anemone, and we will have other example also. So clownfish and shark and suckerfish. This would be there in Commensalism. So here clownfish and sea anemone. Like try to look at the image for that. So here also both these species will get benefited, right? So this is one interaction. So plus both will have. Then commensalism. In commensalism, as we have discussed, one species would be benefited and other species would be unaffected. Unaffected means neither harm nor benefit. Simply it will remain neutral. But for one, it will be benefited. Like here, you can see examples like suckerfish and shark, sharkfish and suckerfish. This is one example. And beetles and cow dung. Did you ever saw like on cow dung there would be some sort of insects? Yes. They are nothing but beetles. So here one species will benefit and other would be unaffected. Let's see how. See, some of the examples for that is like orchids on mango branches. On mango tree, you can see growth of such kind of epiphytes. Some sort of small orchids or flowering plants would be there. So this is an example for commensalism. Here it is getting its shelter. It is getting its shelter, orchid. But is there any influence to mango plant, mango tree? No, no effect. It's neither getting harm nor getting benefited. So it is an example for commensalism. Okay, so that is one thing. Then can you see this? Cattle egret and grazing cattle. Cattle egret. This is the bird. It is known as cattle egret. Okay, and this is a calf. So usually it will sit on that and it will get its protection and it will get its movement, all of them. So neither benefit to cow nor harm to cow. Simply it will get its benefit. So it is an example for commensalism. Okay, so that is also one thing. Then sea anemone and clownfish. Sea anemone and clownfish. Here is the example. So it is an example for mutualism. So try to just pick, just have example for this, clownfish and sea anemone. Okay, so then it's wrongly placed. Then can you see suckerfish and shark? So this is shark and this is suckerfish. It will just, so it at the base, this suckerfishes will just get attached to this and it will get its protection, and it gets its protection and it gets its locomotion, transportation, everything would be done, whereas shark will not have any harm or benefit out of this suckerfish. So this is another example for commensalism, sharkfish and suckerfish. Okay, is this clear? So here also one thing. And can you see E. coli bacteria? Have you heard of E. coli bacteria? Escherichia coli, Escherichia coli bacteria. So E. coli bacteria which lives inside the human intestine. So here E. coli bacteria is beneficial bacteria or harmful bacteria? It's a beneficial bacteria. E. coli bacteria is beneficial. It is beneficial to humans. Okay, and E. coli simply would be there. It will neither be benefited nor be harmed. So likewise, so E. coli in human intestine is another example. See, dung beetles and cow dung. So this is cow dung, and that you have beetles, and it takes the cow dung and it will use for its feeding purpose. So simply here dung beetle would be benefited and there is no effect for cow dung. So such kind of interactions are known as commensalism, right? Where one would be benefited and other would be unaffected. Okay, can you able to identify and locate them? Okay, so that is one thing. And next type of interaction is amensalism. Amensalism, here what will happen means one species will be harmed. One species will be harmed and other species is unaffected. Other species is unaffected. Commensalism, one would be benefited, other is neither harmed nor benefited. In amensalism, one would be harmed and other would be unaffected. Can you able to identify the difference between two? So here, like for example, large tree shades a small plant. For example, if a big tree is there and below to that there is a kind of small plant which is growing under that. So is there any effect to large plant? No. Is there any benefit to large plant? No. But what is the impact on this small plant? Yes, if it is growing under a tree, it won't get the sunlight properly, and if it won't get the sunlight properly, then how can the nourishment will nourishment for that small plant? So it would be harmed, in the sense it will lose its sunlight. That means photosynthesis will not occur properly. So in that way it will happen, and it will lead to retarding the growth of small plant. So that is one way. So one species got harmed and other got unaffected. And other example for this is, there is a process called antibiosis. There is a process called antibiosis. Antibiosis means, here, like, have you heard of antibiotics? Have you heard of antibiotics? And antibiotics are prepared from what? Microorganisms. Microorganisms like bacteria. So here one bacteria would be, means like with the help of one bacteria, with the help of a bacteria or microorganism will prepare the antibiotics. That means here the microorganisms will produce some sort of chemicals which would be harmful to other microorganisms, right? And the bacteria which is producing the chemical will not have any effect, right? So because of these secretions done by one bacteria, other bacteria will die, will be affected. So here also one would be harmed and other would be unaffected. So that process is known as antibiosis. Antibiosis, simply to say, like, production of antibiotics is based on such kind of mechanism, right? So that is one thing. Then simply next one is parasitism. We have understood about parasitism. Here one would be benefited and other would be disadvantaged, right? So think of this, ticks on dog, ticks on the dogs, there can be ticks, or lice on the head of humans, we can have lice. So, and mosquitoes will suck the blood. So here what is happening, one is getting benefited, blood, lice for blood, and here ticks, they will also get that nourishment benefit, and other is getting disadvantaged, right? So that is parasitism, right? Here parasites can be of two types. One would be ectoparasites. Ecto, have you heard of these words? Ectoparasites. Parasitism, here when we say about parasitism, it would be of two types, ecto and endo. Endo means inside, ecto means outside. So ectoparasites means those parasites which live on the surfaces of host organism. In parasitism we have said that there would be two types of organisms, one would be host and other would be parasite, right? So if parasite is living on the host, on the surface of the host, think of mosquitoes, they will come, sit, and they will bite and they will just nourishment, like mosquitoes, lices, likewise. And these are nothing but some of the examples for ectoparasites. And there can be some parasites which will live inside the host and they will get their nourishment. So they are known as endoparasite. That means they will live inside the host, right? So endoparasites and endoparasites. Generally microorganisms like bacteria or like roundworms, tapeworms, or such kind of pathogens which can cause the diseases in humans. So they are all nothing but endoparasites, right? Is that clear? So that is one thing. Then competition. So we have already understood competition. Like same species will compete for a particular thing. It can be for food, it can be for mate, it can be for shelter, likewise. And even you also have competition in between you with reference to qualifying exam. So competition. So there is competition. Then predation. We have understood what is predation. Like simply relationship between lion and zebra. Lion will Lion is the predator and zebra is the prey. And here tiger and deer. So simply tiger is the predator and deer is the prey. Bear and fish. Bear is the predator and fish is the prey, right? So this is one type of relationship, interaction. So finally, neutralism. That means no benefit, neither benefit to anyone nor harm to anyone.